No, sir. All this can't keep a fella from putting down his ideas. Something is going to add up here. His own air-conditioned castle with a deep freeze. Cooler for beer. Great big lawn where Bet and Pubsy will welcome him home. Veterans Emergency Housing Program is launched to help solve the housing emergency in hundreds of cities. The target, 2,700,000 homes and apartments started by the end of 1947.
You'll find a scene like this in nearly every village, town, and city throughout the country. For in the hopes and dreams of everyone, there's a home they can call their own. Home brings a sense of security to a man. And to every woman, her home means a setting for gracious living.
And we'll have the living room right in here. And the kitchen right here so we can see the children playing in the yard. And we have shrubbery, of course, right along in here. And, oh, darling, it's going to be just perfect.
The housing developments are always named after the things they destroy. You know, so if it's called Quail Run, you know, it means the quails have all been exterminated. If it's Oak Ridge, it means there's no oaks left.
It's a happy-go-spending world, reflected in the windows of the suburban shopping centers where they go to buy. The shopping centers see these young adults as people whose homes are always in need of expansion. People who buy in large quantities and truck it away in their cars. It's a big market. These young adults, shopping with the same determination that led them to the suburbs in the first place, are the goingest part of a nation on wheels, living by the automobile. The first young adults in the age of the push button.
The industrial city and the industrial town were really things that had never been seen before. You know, they were new. Human beings didn't have experience with them and with all the terrible things that they produced. So, you know, the towns and cities of North America grew up in tandem with the industrial processes and were very much products of industrialism. And what happens pretty early in the process, by the mid-19th century, is that the industrial city becomes a fairly horrible place. There's all this noise and effluence and pollution and stenches and all these terrible byproducts of factories, and people don't want to live around that stuff anymore. And then you get the additional problems of, you know, you need armies of workers to toil in these factories which are assuming increasingly immense scale. The quarters that they live in end up being these vast tenement slums. You know, this idea establishes itself in, I think, the collective consciousness of all of us North Americans that the city is not really a very good place to live. And what is the alternative? Well, there's the city and there's a country.
Suburbia and all it promises has become the American dream. But as we enter the 21st century, serious questions are emerging about the sustainability of this way of life. Does the suburban dream have a future?
The whole suburban project, I think, can be summarized pretty succinctly as the greatest misallocation of resources in the history of the world. America took all of its post-war wealth and invested it in a living arrangement that has no future.
The basic cause of it all is the end of cheap and abundant energy.
Within our lifetimes, we're going to see the end of the age of oil And the result of that will be the end of the American way of life.
I use the term clusterfuck to describe what we're heading into. I think that the suburban destiny is a pretty hopeless situation. And, you know, I use that term because it shocks people. But I use it because I think people need to be shocked into the awareness that we got to start preparing for a real problem. First, we have to just revive the idea that the town and the neighborhood and the city can be a wonderful place. And I think the new urbanists have been very successful in beginning that process.
Ironically, new urbanists have been now criticized heavily for being historicist and back to the future and all the rest of that. And I don't think that's at all the case. I mean, you have to pick up the threads of culture and history and carry them forward. But carrying them forward is the challenge of new urbanism. That's the new in new urbanism. I actually think the trend, especially in housing, is pretty clearly away from traditional subdivisions when people are given a choice. We designed this project in Denver called Stapleton. Stapleton's been redeveloped along new urbanist lines, and it now sells at a premium of about 25% compared to typical subdivisions in the same region. What that demonstrates to me is that the marketplace really wants more walkable and more diverse neighborhoods. I think it's more important to rest the alternative strategies on the multiplicity of implications rather than trying to be reductionist here and say this is an energy issue. Maybe the global warming issue is yet another one to address in rethinking our patterns of development. There should be, and there are, a million good reasons for good urbanism.
What we will end up doing is creating a lot more localized creation of energy sources, so that if you have an energy problem, it's the problem for your village versus the problem for 1/3 of the United States.
Alternative energies are going to be, at best, small lifeboats made available in local communities by people who say, nobody's going to do this for me. We have to do it for ourselves. We have to get solar in our neighborhood to wire our apartment. Right now, we have to spend whatever it takes because the grid's going to go down. We have to find ways to create biodiesel in our own community. This peak oil is going to reverse globalization. Survival will happen from a local basis, and we're going to see local economies. That's the only way the human race is going to survive.
Irony was the ethos of the late 20th century. But as we move into the 21st century, we're going to discover that irony is a luxury we can't afford anymore. This stuff isn't just funny. Our lives are going to depend on whether we have an environment that's worth living in and that can actually support the project of civilization. You know, we're not just going to be able to sit back and make fun of it anymore and enjoy it ironically. That part of our history is over. It's time to get serious.
But right now, you can ride along with the happy go spending, buy it now, young adults of today.